Okay students, today we are going to continue the endocrine system chapter of ICSE class 10 biology. This is the last part of this chapter. In this video we will study about the last part, that is the pituitary gland and the feedback mechanism. Okay, so let's start. Now first let us know the structure and the location of this pituitary gland. Now pituitary gland is a small projection. It is the size of a pea and has two distinct lobes, that is the anterior and posterior pituitary. Here you can see this is the structure of pituitary gland, and if you will see, this is our brain and it hangs at the base of the brain. Okay, here you can see this is the anterior pituitary and this is the posterior pituitary. Now both this part of this pituitary gland, anterior and posterior pituitary, both of them secrete a different kinds of hormones, okay, which we will study now. And what is the location? It hangs from the base of the midbrain below the hypothalamus, that just now I told. Pituitary gland is also called a master gland. So what is the reason behind that? As we have studied many different kinds of glands which are present in our body, like thyroid gland, adrenal gland, and pancreas, so those glands are controlled by this pituitary gland. Okay, means pituitary gland secrete hormones which stimulate those glands to secrete their hormones, as a result of which that hormones or that glands are stimulated or controlled by this pituitary gland. That's why pituitary gland is known as the master gland. Now what are the hormones that are secreted from anterior pituitary? Now we just now saw that pituitary is divided into two parts, the anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. So anterior pituitary secretes a number of hormones. The first hormone is growth hormone. Now growth hormone, what are the conditions? If it is hyposecreted, then it will lead to a condition called dwarfism. Dwarfism occurs generally in childhood. Now what happens if it is hypersecreted? Hypersecretion can lead to gigantism, which occurs in childhood. Same, the size of the body will increase very much, and hypersecretion in case of adult can lead to a condition which is called acromegaly, okay, which is in case of adult. Now there are certain tropic hormones which are secreted. The first is thyroid stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone, it stimulates the thyroid gland to secrete thyroxine. Okay, we saw that pituitary gland controls all other endocrine glands. So in order to control those endocrine glands, pituitary gland secrete a hormone, means generally from the anterior pituitary, a hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone, which stimulates the thyroid gland to secrete thyroxine. Okay, it controls, means if necessary, if thyroxine needs to be secreted, then what will happen? Anterior pituitary will secrete a hormone TSH, and TSH will stimulate thyroid gland, which in turn will secrete the thyroxine. Okay, you need to remember the full form also. Next tropic hormone is adrenocorticotropic hormone. This hormone stimulates the adrenal cortex to secrete their hormones. Next is gonadotropic hormones. Gonadotropic hormones are of three types. First is follicle stimulating hormone, which is called FSH. It stimulates the egg formation and sperm formation, okay, which is in case of reproductive organs, egg formation in female and sperm formation in male. This is due to the hormone called FSH. Next is luteinizing hormone, which is LH. It stimulates the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is present in the ovary after the ovum is released. So this corpus luteum is a structure which secrete a hormone called progesterone, which is in case of the female body or the female reproductive organ. And testis, which is the male reproductive organ, it secrete a hormone called testosterone. Okay, so these all are stimulated by LH or the luteinizing hormone. Now next is prolactin. Prolactin stimulates the milk secretion, which is in case of female. Now the next is hormones from the posterior pituitary. So there are two hormones. The first is antidiuretic hormone or the ADH. It generally increases the reabsorption of water from kidney tubules. Okay, means in the excretory system, if you will study, there you will see that the nephron, okay, which is the structural and the functional unit of kidney, that nephron helps in the urine formation by three processes. So during that processes, water is reabsorbed from the nephron, so that reabsorption is stimulated by antidiuretic hormone. So that reabsorption is stimulated by antidiuretic. Now if antidiuretic hormone is not secreted or it is deficient, okay, what will happen? It can lead to a condition called diabetes insipidus, means water is not reabsorbed from the nephron, as a result of which what will happen? Water will remain in the urine, as a result of which there will be a condition called water diabetes, means you will see urine full of water. That is diabetes insipidus. Next is oxytocin. Oxytocin stimulates the uterus contraction during childbirth, means during the childbirth uterus is generally contracted, which leads to the process called parturition, and it also stimulates the milk ejection. Okay, so these were the hormones from posterior pituitary and anterior pituitary. Next, which we will study, is the feedback mechanism. This you need to understand properly. Our body has a mechanism to maintain the normal state. Now what do you mean by this? First, see that there are two feedback mechanism which is present in our body. The first is positive feedback and the next is negative feedback. In our body generally negative feedback occurs because positive feedback is very much rare. Okay, now what is this feedback mechanism? Now suppose, let us take an example. The glucose level in your blood has increased. So what will happen? Insulin will be secreted, which will decrease the glucose level in your blood. Now when the glucose level in your blood has decreased, insulin also needs to be decreased, because if insulin will continue to be secreted, then the glucose level will fall very much. Okay, so in order to slow down the insulin secretion after the glucose level has decreased, that negative feedback occurs. Okay, as a result of which what happens? Insulin also decreases. Okay, so that will maintain the glucose level. Next is positive feedback. Positive feedback is the reverse of negative feedback. Positive feedback occurs, means suppose a hormone needs to be secreted more. Here in the negative feedback you saw that the hormone needs to be decreased. Okay, means the secretion of the hormone needs to be decreased. But in case of positive feedback, you need that hormone, means during childbirth, during parturition, what happens? In case of normal state, the uterus remain uncontracted, but during parturition you need the uterus to be contracted. So a hormone called oxytocin, which we saw now, oxytocin is secreted, which contract the uterus. Okay, now that uterus needs to be contracted till the child has come out. So in order to be contracted, that hormone needs to be secreted continuously. So during that condition positive feedback occurs, as a result of which that hormone oxytocin is secreted continuously so as to contract the uterus till the child has come out. Okay, so this was the feedback mechanism. So our chapter is completed. If you like the video, subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. We will meet in the next video with a new chapter.